Okay, hi everybody. So today we're going to be looking at the spinal cord, and that's what you're looking at behind me right here. So before we get started, I just want to explain what we're looking at. So right now, if you were to look at me, my spinal cord is running down my body like this. So let's say this is my head, and this is the spinal cord. By the way, this drawing here has nothing to do with what I'm going to be going over. Just to give you, I just want to give you an idea of what we're looking at. So imagine now I take a cross section of this, like this, and then I were to pull this cross section of my spinal cord out, right, and be kind of like this, and now I turn it this way, and we're looking at it. Another way to look at this is imagine I cut the top of this off, and then you will be looking down into the spinal cord like this. This is what it would look like here. So really quick, what we have here on the spinal cord is we got the inside portion of this right here. Okay, this is made up of gray matter. So this is going to be gray matter that's on the inside right here. All right, and the gray matter is basically made up of cell bodies and dendrites. Okay, and then you also have some glial cells in here. All right, now the other thing is, if you notice out here, this is all going to be made up of white matter. So all of this portion that's out in here is made up of white matter. What we mean by that is this is made up of axons that have myelin on them. So they're axons that have myelin. And axons that have myelin basically are going to bring signals to the brain. All right, so let's go ahead and get started naming some of these parts now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, if you notice there in the back, this is the posterior portion here. If you notice, I have this line in here. This is called the posterior median sulcus. All right, this is my posterior median sulcus. All right, it's just where the two parts of the spinal cord come together. Now, in this section here, I have axons that communicate with each other. So this is going to be called the posterior white, because it's in the white area, commissure. All right, and that's it right there. Now, like we said, this part's gray, so this is going to be my posterior gray commissure. Okay, and again, because we're communicating back and forth through here. Now, in the middle of my spinal cord, I have something called the central canal. This is my central canal. And the central canal is going to contain cerebral spinal fluid. It contains CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. The next thing is, if I have a posterior gray commissure, I have an anterior gray commissure. Okay, and if I had a posterior white commissure, I have an anterior white commissure. All right? And then I had a posterior median sulcus, but if you notice, this is kind of open a little bit. This here is going to be called my anterior, this is my anterior median fissure. Because it doesn't come all the way together, we call it the anterior median fissure. Okay? And so that's the part that's right here. Now, if you notice on this, I have some things going on here. You'll notice we have like horns that are coming out of here. So this is going to be called this is my posterior horn right here. Okay? And my posterior horn is basically going to be for things such as sensory. All right, we'll get into this in just a minute. And again, I have one over here also, and we're going to deal with that in just a minute. We also have right here, we have the lateral horn. My lateral horn is going to go from about T1 to L2, and this is going to do with sympathetic motor, so such as increase in the heart rate and things such as that. So this is my lateral horn. Okay, and it basically has to do with sympathetic motor, the fight or flight response. And then up in here we have what we call the anterior horns. So this is my anterior horn right here. And anterior horns also have to do with motor. We're going to talk about these in just a minute. So that has to do with motor. Remember, motor means to move muscle. So the difference is here, if it's sympathetic, it means something's going on where I have to go into the fight or flight response, and I'm going to have this controlling muscles and things such as that, such as increasing the heart rate, increasing glands and sweat and things like that. So let's now take a look at this. This here, this section right here, is going to be called my dorsal root. This is my dorsal root right here. Okay, this whole thing right here. Now, if you recall when we spoke earlier, what we said is you have cell bodies. If the cell bodies were like around this outside of the brain in an area that wasn't too well defined, we call that a center. If it was deeper in the brain and defined by a border, we call that a nucleus. Then we said if we have cell bodies out here in the peripheral nervous system, we called it a ganglion. And so this is my cell body right here. And because it's the dorsal root and this is a ganglion, we call this the dorsal root ganglion. Okay, this is my dorsal root ganglion that's right here. It's a bulge, and some books will actually have it down in here too, okay? So that's my dorsal root ganglion. Now, in the front here, we have what we call our ventral root. Ventral means anterior. So this is my ventral root. Now, what's the difference between these two? When we get sensation, what it's going to do is it's going to come in through the dorsal root. So let's say you feel something on your skin, it's going to come this way and go toward the spinal cord. Let's say you get a response, it goes to the brain, and the brain wants you to move a muscle. That's going to come down, it's going to synapse in the anterior horn, and then it's going to head out the ventral root. So this is going to go this way. All right, so that's going to go this way. If we look right here, you can see these come together. So I have my sensory going this way, right? I have my motor going this way. Where these come together, this is going to be called a spinal nerve. Okay, and you may remember when we were doing the video talking about the spinal cord, we talked about spinal nerves. Remember we had C1, C2, and we talked about that and went all the way down the spinal cord. So let's take a look now. I have my sensory coming in, right? Let's say I have signals that are coming in from the skin. They're going to come in, and then what they're going to do is they're going to come right into this area about right here. This is called my somatic sensory. All right? So you feel a bug on your skin or something like that, it's going to come right about here. Let's say that you're feeling hungry. Sorry. Let's say you're feeling hungry or something like that, okay? You have to go to the bathroom or something like that. That's going to come right into here, and this is going to be my my visceral sensory. Okay, that's going to be my visceral sensory. You're also going to have proprioception in here also. Let's say that someone were to rub on your skin real light, all right? That's going to come in this way, right? Like we saw here. It happens over there too. It would come into here and come to my somatic sensory. We'll talk about what happens in a little bit after that. Now, let's say that you just ate a meal and you got to basically move your stomach, you go to swallow and you get your esophagus move in, you need to churn the food in your stomach, you need to get peristalsis going in your intestines. That would come to here, and this would be called, I'm going to draw it going out this way, this would be called visceral motor. All right, this is my visceral motor, because now I'm moving muscles, right? This would also be for your proprioception too, to make sure that you keep your balance and stuff when you're walking and things, just standing here like this, all right? Let's say now that you have that bug landed on your skin, and you need to get it off. So you do a voluntary action and you hit it off. That would come down through here, which this would be my somatic motor. This is voluntary movements. Okay? So what would happen now is that's going to come and it's going to also head out this way. So here I got the signals coming in, they go up to the brain, they come down, and then they go out. One last thing I want to go over is, we already said this was the posterior white commissure, that's where they communicate back and forth. But these areas back in here are going to be called these are our posterior white columns. Okay, and then this would be it over here too. Posterior white column would be over here too. Okay, this is going to be things such as light touch. If your cell phone goes out and you feel, goes out, but if your cell phone vibrates, that's going to be felt back here, as well as proprioception too. Okay, in the posterior white columns. On the side, we have the lateral white columns. Okay, over here, I'm going to feel pain and temperature. I'm going to feel pain and temperature is going to be over here. Okay, and then in the front, I am going to have my anterior white columns. This would be more for crude touch, things such as that. Okay, and this is going to be more for crude touch. We'll go more into these later. So as you can see, we have our dorsal root, we have our ventral root, we have our dorsal root ganglion. Dorsal root brings sensory information in. It's going to go to somewhere in the spinal cord. It's going to, in the horns. It will synapse. It will go to one of the white areas, and then it will go up to the brain, or information will come down from the brain, or actually I should say information will then come down from the brain, and it's going to come out through some of the horns. And again, we'll look at all this later on, but for the most part, that's it for my spinal cord. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please watch some more of my videos. Thank you very much.